But it also, the word worship means to pay obeisance. Everybody say obeisance. Everybody shout obeisance. In other words, it's not just enough to worship, waving your hands, falling on your knees at church, shedding tears, shouting, praying in tongues, worshiping him. God says that's all good and dandy, but part of worship is obeying me. Every time you obey me, you worship. You are with me, aren't you? In other words, as soon as somebody fusses at you or has some rough words with you and something inside of you says, I'm going to get them, and you decide to turn the other cheek, you have just worshiped. You are with me, aren't you? God begins to touch your heart to give your tithe, and this time I'm not going to give $50, but I'm going to give my dime of every dollar. As soon as you do that, you just worship. You are with me, aren't you? Every time you obey God, when you are sleepy and tired and exhausted, and the Lord's trying to wake you up to go pray and come with me to devotion, every time you get up, you just worship. Worship is obedience. Everybody shout obedience. Everybody shout obedience. But also the word obey, watch this, the word obey, that Hebrew word shema. Everybody say shema. It means, watch this, to hear intelligently. It means to hear. It means hearing, being able to hear attentively. Everybody shout hear. So obedience, the word obey, based on the Old Testament and the New, it means to hear. Everybody say hear. In other words, when I hear God's voice, I'm able to obey it. In other words, most of us, just like me, I hope, when you hear the word obedience, you see an action. You think of somebody doing something. And God says the greatest thing you can do is first be able to hear. You've got to be able to hear me. So in other words, the word obedience means to hear. Everybody shout hear. Faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So hearing always includes doing. The obedience is always embedded in our faith. Obedience is embedded in the belief factor we have in our God. God says that if you believe me, you will hear me and do what I ask you to do. God says obedience is connected to the voice of God. God says hearing equals believing equals doing equals working. God says in order for us to do something about it, we've got to be able to hear God. When we hear him, we will believe him. And when we believe him, we will do and work out what he asks us to. And the church said, so hearing is doing. And the church said,